The main thing is that I hear a lot, EMFs are everywhere in nature. It's not something that humans have invented, right?
So I thought, is there a way to solve this? What was really fascinating is most of the things actually increased the radiation. Our kids have the cell phone in their pockets all the time. They have the earbuds. Then they have the iPad right over their lap, right?
The closer it is, the more energy can penetrate your tissue. So the dispersion, I guess, happens from the screen out. Is that right?
Yes, really smart question.
There is no antenna right underneath the Apple logo, which is why you don't need to have a sticker there. Is that right?
I love your question. You're such an engineer.
Is there any impact on signal quality?
It's zero. We've sold over 1 million of these, and we've never had any complaints with wireless charging, overheating, signal, none of that.
You're listening to the Primal Shift podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kummer, and my goal is to help you achieve optimal health by bridging the gap between ancestral living and the demands of modern society. Get ready to unlock the transformative power of nature as the ultimate biohack, revolutionizing your health and reconnecting you with your primal self.
Before we continue, I'd like to thank a company who helped me improve my cardiorespiratory fitness, or VO2 max, by 37% in just a few weeks. All it took was 3 9-minute workouts per week. That's less than 30 minutes of exercise per week. Of course, I'm talking about Carol, my favorite reheat bike that I've been using for over 3 years. Reheat stands for Reduced Exertion High-Intensity Interval Training, and it's a scientifically proven training methodology that helps you squeeze the most benefits out of a workout in the shortest amount of time. Each workout on Carol takes as little as 5 minutes and provides the same benefits as a 45-minute run. Don't believe me? Check out my detailed Carol reviews on my blog and YouTube channel. Links in the show notes. But if I'm too busy to go to the gym as your main excuse not to exercise, check out the Carol bike and use code Michael to get $100 off on carolbike.com. That's CAROLBIKE.com. Now back to the episode. All right, Ben, thanks for joining me on the show today. We've been working together for several years, and I think your product was one that made me think more about man-made EMFs and the potential issues associated with it. The main thing is that I hear a lot, EMFs are everywhere in nature. It's not something that humans have invented, right? So what's the problem with EMFs, in particular man-made ones? How are they different? Or how has our exposure changed, I guess, our exposure level to the overall EMFs, over the past decades, and why is that an issue? Let's maybe talk about that first so we kind of set the baseline, and then we can discuss some of the mitigation techniques that work to reduce your exposure, because let's be realistic, getting away from all man-made EMFs is not going to happen unless you're going to go, and live in the bush all by yourself. Most people don't want to do that. So what can you do? And what are some of the things out there that you've seen are probably a bad idea to implement? Because, they might not be working, it's just a waste of money. But more importantly, that can actually make the situation worse and potentially harm you, right? So let's start with what's the issue with EMFs and why did you even, maybe let's start why did you get into the EMF business at all? You're a real estate developer, right? So EMFs and real estate, those are not, usually mentioned in the same sentence.
Right. Now, kind of funny. I started the business by accident. It was never supposed to be a business. I was worried about my boys wearing earbuds during Zoom classes, like during the lockdown.
Right.
With COVID, the kids are constantly wearing earbuds, going to school wearing those earbuds. Then they ride their bikes. Then when we go snowboarding, they're wearing those earbuds. Then they're gaming. Then they're falling asleep with those earbuds. And I remember learning in certain countries that banned Wi-Fi from nurseries and kindergartens because they learned that our kids, their skulls are much thinner than ours, and they absorb 10 times the radiation as an adult's skull. So knowing that, and now thinking about my kids rocking the earbuds, got my mind thinking, how do I solve this? What's inside these earbuds? And I learned that you have 2.4, basically like a 2.4 wireless modem in each ear. That's what it is. That's how powerful that Bluetooth is. And they're talking to each other through my kid's skull. So they're shooting radiation back and forth.
And you're referring specifically about Probably those guys, right? The Apple AirPods. Yeah.
Yep. So I thought, is there a way to solve this? And what I did was I purchased everything that I could find on Amazon and tried everything out. What was really fascinating is most of the things actually increased the radiation, which is really scary. So imagine...
What did you find? Like stickers, or what did you come across and try?
So I tried weird gold stickers, silver stickers, plastic stickers with metal inside, and then weird stones that you're supposed to put near the phone or near your earbuds that are supposed to neutralize everything and reduce your pH level in your body. I tried everything. And what was fascinating is that most actually increased the radiation. So do you remember those old TVs before you and I were born? But they had antennas on them, like the old school like antennas, and people would put foil on top of the antenna.
Yeah.
That's basically what was happening, was actually amplifying the signal.
Right.
So after about 6 months of doing due diligence and not solving it and couldn't figure it out, an idea came to my head, and it was, how do you break up the radiation, or how do you break up EMF into particles? Is that possible? Has anyone done that before? And as I was researching it, it's never been done before. So that's when I went on a mission to see, well, let's see if I could make this happen. And the idea came to my head just by accident. I was thinking about, when you're standing in the ocean and a wave hits you, the wave is powerful enough to knock you over. What if the wave hits the ground first and then you only get the mist, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how the idea came on creating this product. So that's why I kind of got into the business by accident to protect my kids. But what's really fascinating is that, like, if you look at our parents and our grandparents, right, and that generation, they didn't have the exposure we had. They had natural EMFs, right? You have Saturate and other natural sources, which are just getting a little bit up, they're just getting a little bit sprinkled, right? But this is a different game now, because now it's about the duration of time and the proximity that we have to our bodies. So the duration of time is, okay, our kids have the cell phone in their pockets all the time. They have the earbuds right in their brains. Then they have the iPad right over their lap, right? And the parents are giving their iPads to the kids at a really young age. Mm-hmm. And then the kids are sleeping with the cell phone right near their head on the nightstand.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like the duration of time and the proximity to the human tissue is what got my mind going, right? And if you think about it, if your Wi-Fi router, right? Your Wi-Fi router is a couple feet from your body, a couple feet from where you sleep, or right next to your office. And you're constantly getting that, and it's pretty close. What is that going to do to us in the future, right? What is it? Now you got to remember, the signal starts like this, and then it opens up. Mm-hmm. So the further you're away from it, the safer you are. So if you want to take your cell phone and leave it in the bathroom, or leave it in the other room overnight while you're sleeping, it's a safer bet. Right. That's how we practice everything here in my house.
And I think one important nugget here to repeat is distance plays a major role. So the cell tower a mile away is likely less of an issue than the phone next to your head, right? And it's funny that a lot of people they're there are cell towers or my neighbor's Wi-Fi or whatever, but then at the same time they maybe have a wearable like maybe an Apple Watch that they keep on overnight and sleep with it right next to their head. That's much more of an issue than your neighbor's Wi-Fi, right? Simply because of the proximity, and if the amount of energy that is getting into your tissue, the closer it is, the more energy can penetrate your tissue. And your tissue reacts to that, it warms up. There are other effects that have been studied. And maybe, at this point, it's also worthwhile talking about, the difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation, because the the idea is that I think we all know that ionizing radiation can break cell bonds. That's problematic. Be it exposed to X-rays, all the time, or any other ionizing radiation that can actually break the bonds, within your cells or between cells. That is a problem. Non-ionizing radiation, people say, well, it doesn't break those bonds, so it's not an issue. Well, I don't think so, because we have now enough studies that clearly show that even non-ionizing radiation, again, depending on the distance, depending on the strength, can trigger effects in the tissue, such as tissue warming. And what that does then over time is not completely known yet. And humans really have a poor track record of, coming up with something and saying it's safe, and then it turns out, well, maybe it isn't. Cigarette smoke, lead paint, all of those, asbestos. We've used or developed and invented so many things that we thought, well, they are safe because we have not seen any issues yet. And then decades later, we figure, well, maybe, it wasn't that safe. And I treat EMFs, man-made EMFs, exactly the same way. I assume they are not safe until proven otherwise, and not the other way around.
What's fascinating about what you said is when you look at the chart of ionizing and non-ionizing, and you look at the safe levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
The FCC safe levels.
Right.
I believe they were tested in, I think, in 96 or 97. And what they did was they did a SAR test. Are you familiar with what that is?
No.
So anytime you launch a product, you want to sell a product that has an antenna in it, like a cell phone,
mm-hmm.
you're required to get a SAR test. And the SAR test measures how much radiation is absorbed into the human tissue, into the skull and into the body.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain amount that's allowed to be absorbed into the human tissue. And you have to go to an FCC accredited lab and do a SAR test. And then you have to show that you passed, and then you're allowed to launch your
right.
Samsung or iPhone phone, right? What's fascinating about that is the limits that they tested, and the last time they tested it was 1996. Okay, but the funny part is they test the phone for 4 minutes on and then 4 minutes off. They never test the phone for what you're really using your phone for. Are you using your phone for only 4 minutes the whole day? Is it really important for 4 minutes a day? But hold on, it gets worse than that. Do you remember this phone?
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And that's like, this is not even like 2.4 gigahertz.
Uh-huh.
So they're testing really an old signal too. They're not testing the 5Gs.
Uh-huh.
The new phones that are going to be coming out that they're working on are going to go up to 20 Gs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's the same thing, which is really scary because you'll look at other brands out there and they'll say, oh, we have lab reports. We have a SAR test. And you look at the SAR test, and look, what are they measuring? They're not even measuring 2.4 gigahertz. They're in like the 200, 300 hertz, like a walkie-talkie.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of scary stuff out there that people are promoting that works, and it's scary because they're not doing anything or they're actually increasing the radiation. So I think the consumer has to be careful and learn how to read lab reports and see if they're real and see where is the product made, where is the product coming from. So there's a lot there, but unfortunately, other countries, Russia, China, Israel, Italy, France, they have all implemented systems for the SAR test.
Mm-hmm.
They're newer systems, and they implement systems of kids can't have Wi-Fi in nurseries and kindergartens. It's really fascinating, right? How they're so ahead of us, and we are just closing our eyes to all this.
Yeah. One thing with, one of the arguments I hear a lot as well, if you don't want to get exposure from your cell phone, just turn it off, right? And I agree with that, turn off your Wi-Fi at night if you're not using it, turn off your phone. But the thing is with a cell phone in particular, turning the phone into airplane mode whenever you don't use it means you're practically not, you cannot receive any calls, right? So if you need your phone for work, what are you going to do? I mean, I got now this, Ethernet adapter that I can plug in. So at least I can, disable Wi-Fi and even cellular connectivity, because I can make, phone calls over voice over IP, basically, using the Ethernet connection. But, turning that stuff on and off gets old. And at some point, unless it can be automated where, the system detects, oh, I'm plugged in, I have internet, and I turn everything else off, and then I turn it back on when I unplug, it's probably not sustainable. And most people, might not even have an Ethernet port, nearby. So I think your idea with your product is, and the same goes with, with the AirPods. I mean, use wired, headphones, then you don't have to worry about, some of those EMFs at least, right? But there's a reason why a lot of people have those. They work really well. They are very practical. There was nothing getting tangled up. I mean, that was one of the things where, as soon as there were wireless AirPods out there many years ago, before even I knew anything about EMFs, maybe now I would make a different decision. But I'm like, this is great, because getting tangled up all the time was just a pain in the butt, and now I just, put them in and I'm ready to go. But the point is, if you don't want to give up some of those conveniences, the, convenient factor of certain products, there are still ways you can use to mitigate the problem. And that's why, I guess, or one of the reasons why, you launched, WaveBlock, and let's talk a little bit about what is WaveBlock exactly. How does it work? How is it not just a metal foil? How is it not the Faraday cage that blocks all signals? Because that's one of the things I hear a lot. Well, if you block the signal, then, the phone is not going to work. But let's maybe go back to that wave example, you mentioned before. It's not about blocking the wave, but dispersing the energy, so to say, so you get less absorbed into your tissue and your ultimate exposure levels are lower than they would be otherwise.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because that's exactly what I ran into for 6 months while trying to solve this. If you put foil on the phone, you're either increasing the radiation or deflecting it into an area that you don't want. And then your signal is getting bad, your wireless charging doesn't work, the foil, the metals doesn't work. And if you wrap it with a material that's made out of stone or lead, then the phone doesn't work at all.
Right.
And that's the issue that was just going on over and over through my head. How do I solve this? But the way that WaveBlock works is it's not made out of metal. So here, for example, this is a sticker that goes on your phone. But if you were to, and you could do this test at home, if you were to shine a flashlight at this material right here, you would notice that the light from your flashlight is broken up. It's broken up and absorbed. So it defragments the light.
Right.
And that's how WaveBlock works. So you have, behind your phone, you have 5 different antennas. Some models you have 4 antennas. Sometimes you have some antennas here, sometimes you have antennas here, sometimes the antenna is here. That's why we have so many different SKUs. We can't make one that fits all of them. Each one is engineered because we don't know where the antenna is going to be, right? So we have to engineer for each one separately. But what happens is when the antennas are searching for the big antenna, for the satellite antenna, and it hits the WaveBlock material, it disperses it and reduces the radiation. So you're not getting this strong stream of water, right? You're getting the dispersed.
Right.
That kind of makes sense. I'm trying to break it up into simple terms.
Yeah. So if the sticker is on the back of the phone, and I just wanted to grab my phone, but it's the camera, so I can't do that. But the sticker is on the back of the phone, right? Is there then less radiation? So if I were to put that phone into my pocket with a sticker facing my thigh, would I get 0 or less radiation on that side where the sticker is? Because the reflective side sticks against the phone, right? So the dispersion, I guess, happens from the screen out. Is that right?
Yes, really smart question. So obviously we're not blocking. That's impossible. We can't block or the phone will stop working. But what's happening on the backside, if you're going to put the backside against your skin, and if you look at our SAR report, which is on our website, I believe it's 80% less on the back and then 49% less on the front.
That's significant.
Yeah.
And the reason, and I see that the Apple logo is cut out, is still visible. There is no antenna right underneath the Apple logo, which is why you don't need to have a sticker there. Is that right?
I love your question. You're such an engineer. So what's happening is the reason you don't have to cover this is because this is a metal magnet. It's already, there's a metal magnet.
It's blocking already by itself. Gotcha.
Yeah, so we kind of got lucky there. That's what really happened. And some people like to leave it on. I think if you leave it on, when we tested it, it's maybe another like 1%, hardly blocking.
Gotcha. All right. And okay. So we are not blocking. It's not made out of metal, so it's not grounding. It just disperses, which means, is there any impact on signal quality? Is it immeasurable or it's zero?
It's zero. We've sold over 1 million of these, and we've never had any complaints with wireless charging, overheating, signal, none of that.
Okay.
All we're doing is reducing, even on the earbuds. But this is fascinating. How far do you think those earbuds could talk to each other? If you put them in your backyard or on the street, you put one on one end of the street and the other one, how far do you think they could talk to each other?
I have no idea, but I would guess probably, I don't know, maybe 30 yards.
1,200 linear feet.
Wow. And that's line of sight.
Line of sight. So why do we need all that power going through our skull?
Right.
So, and that was the hardest part because this is my home office. And what I did was I converted my home office into a Faraday cage.
Oh, yeah?
I wrapped the entire office with a material that had polyester and silver in it. And I wrapped the whole thing so I wouldn't get interference from the outside world. So I could do the testing in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought really expensive directional radiation meters. Mm-hmm. You need one that is directional because if not, it's going to get the neighbors and weird stuff's going to happen.
Right.
And I started testing. And every time I had too much of my material, it would kind of glitch. To find, and then what would happen is I would make it, I would test it at home, and then I would go mountain biking for a couple hours with it. Or I would go snowboarding and test it out over and over again until I found the exact formula of how much WaveBlock I need to use.
Right.
That was the hardest part because I don't want it to go 1,200 linear feet.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So the product is available for Apple devices, iPhones, right? You have an iPad sticker, I think.
Yeah. So created the iPad sticker about a year ago. And that's the main reason that I came up with that is the idea came to my head as my kids have the iPad over their lap.
Mm-hmm.
And mothers, right? They're laying in bed, maybe pregnant, and the iPad's right over the stomach.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then AirPods. And then for the MacBook as well. I have one sticker on my MacBook here, on my AirPods, and on my phone. But I think the iPad I don't have yet. No. But those are and do you have, the thing is you mentioned it already, you need to kind of one SKU or one product for one particular phone or model of the phone, really, because they're all slightly different, right? So there is no all-purpose kind of get one sticker and it's going to work on most phones. That's impossible. And that's why I guess your product coverage is limited by that reason, or for that reason. Do you have anything for Android, or are you strictly Apple?
Yeah, we do. We have Android phones now as well. And again, you want to be careful because if you have a cell phone and you randomly put one tiny sticker that you buy from Amazon or wherever, and you're right behind the antenna, you're going to amplify that antenna wherever that antenna is.
Right. Yeah.
So, because some people have stickers that are made out of plastic, but inside there, they have metal shavings in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like metal dust.
Right.
So imagine what that does.
Yeah. And that's really one thing, the problem really is, I think in that particular field, there is just a lot of misinformation out there. There is a lot of, lack of knowledge, really. And then there is the fact that most people don't know how to read lab reports, right? And understand what that report really says. And so I've seen, and you've seen even more, I assume, plenty of products out there. And I had, a couple of those products that were, brands reached out to me and said, hey, can you, review it's like, this glass kind of, sphere. You just put it in your room and it's going to mitigate, all EMFs. And that thing was like $800. So it was not inexpensive. So, and the thing is, people think, well, if it's expensive, it's got to work, right? Because why would it be $800? But since it was gifted to me and I didn't have to pay for it, I actually got a hammer from the garage and I cracked it open just to see what's inside. How can, something possibly mitigate EMFs without blocking anything, without doing anything? It's just, plugged in. What does it do? And I cracked it open, and what I found was a boatload of glue that was basically those regular gemstones that you can find anywhere. Nothing special, nothing fancy, nothing expensive. They were just glued in a circle, and then on the outside was an LED light strip that would light up that sphere, so you can tell it was on and working. But that was it. It was just a bunch of gemstones, and with the most, I know that Apple likes to use a lot of glue, which, decreases repairability, right? Like for those kind of guys, there's like a bunch of glue inside of the stem. So there is no easy way to open this thing up and do anything or see anything. And the same was with this device, where it was just glued together and made almost impossible. There was no way other than cracking the glass to get into it. And it turned out it's just a couple of, $20 gemstones, glued together, and then LED light strip and a glass, and that was $800 worth of device that did absolutely nothing. I mean, in this case, the good news is it didn't harm any. It was just, basically a decorative item that would light up, and that's it. But, there are some devices out there, and I've had some of those stickers as well for reviews, or that can wear around your neck or whatever, and if they're practically antennas or extensions of the antennas, if they're in close proximity to the actual antenna in the phone or your iPad or your what have you, you're going to make things worse, and that's a problem,
Yeah.
And people don't know. So how much attention do you pay to removing the source of EMFs rather trying to mitigate it? Meaning, where is your balance point where you say, you know what, by removing something, I would, negatively impact my productivity or whatever it is. But what is your take? How much, do you just remove, no Wi-Fi in your room? I mean, you have, a Faraday cage. Most people don't have that. They don't have the resources to, literally build a Faraday cage. I already failed convincing my wife that we could have like over our bed, like, a drape that's made with silver fabric, to block out everything. Not even that was, easy to get my wife on board with. But what do you do in terms of removing EMFs versus then just mitigating what is left?
You know what? I keep it really simple because we have to live our life. So it's not that extreme here at my house. So the Wi-Fi, we have it on a timer. So it turns off every night when the kids are sleeping. And then we leave our phones far away from us when charging at night. And most of the stuff in the house is hardwired. But that's really it. There's not this, you got to live your life.
Yeah.
I think it's the duration of time and proximity. But what's really fascinating is, and I should send this to you, I just made a video of this. I just moved to a new office. After like 20 years, I just moved to a new office. And I moved into the office and I'm sitting in the office and everything is great. And then one night I'm leaving the office, and when I walk out, I hear a little tiny buzz. Like I hear this like little buzz. I'm like, what is that? What is that? Like, what's that noise? And I open up the door to the side of my office, right? And it's a big office. So there's 5 electrical meters. And each electrical meter has like its own Wi-Fi, right? It has its own like GPS.
The smart meter, huh?
So, I know one of them is, maybe semi-bad. So I said, for fun, let's just test this. So I took my meter and I walked like down the hallway, like with 30 feet away. And as I'm walking, it's already redlining. I get to my desk, which is right near the wall, where the 5 meters are, the meter can't even go anymore. It's fully redline. But there's nothing I can do. This is my new office, right? So what I did, and this is really fun, actually. I've never done this before, so it's fun to know that it actually worked. I bought a paint that blocks the radiation. So I put 3 coats of that paint, and then I put 1 metal strip along the baseboard. And with that metal strip, I hooked up one of the metal strips just to the ground of the electrical. I grounded the whole wall.
Right.
I was able to block everything from coming in, right? So that was really interesting. And so if someone lives in an apartment or has the same issue, that's something that you could solve. And the reason that worried me is because I'm in that office for 5, 6, 8 hours a day. So I get the duration of time and proximity that makes me worried. But everything else is life. Like we go in that.
Yeah, well, fair enough. There is only so much you can do before you dramatically and negatively impact, I guess, the quality of your life after all. So you need to find that balance. And I guess that balance is different for anyone, also depending on your resources and your desire to tinker with stuff, But yeah, I mean, turning off the Wi-Fi at night and, charging the phone in a different room, I guess those are super simple and not only good from a EMF mitigation perspective, but being on your phone right before, going to bed and being on your phone first thing in the morning are terrible for your mental health, so you kind of get like a double win by just doing that, and being off Wi-Fi. So, and that's what we do as well. And it has made a dramatic difference in terms of, our mood, because if the first thing you see in the morning is like a nasty message or whatever, or, stupid comment on social media, that sets the tone for the day, and you don't really need that, right?
Right.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, Ben. I appreciate it. Maybe where can people find you? Where can people find those stickers, most importantly? And how can you make sure, because I know that there's a lot of counterfeit stuff out there that, they're actually getting the real thing. So if you don't sell on Amazon, do you?
And we just started selling on Amazon a couple months ago. Yeah. So we're on Amazon and then WaveBlock.com.
All right. Cool. And then you also have...
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and you also have all the test reports, right? Again, you need lab reports. You need to be able to kind of understand what you're reading. But everything, all the tests that you've done, they're out there. It's not blocking. Maybe that's worth reiterating. It's just dispersing, making sure there's less of that energy from the EMFs getting into your tissue. You mentioned, I think 80% on the back and 49% on the front. So that's a significant reduction in your exposure, especially if you use the phone a lot. Those are no-brainers. And when spend those, whatever it is, $30 or whatever, a sticker cost, you dramatically reduce your exposure without having done anything else, And so I think it's an absolute no-brainer, and they last. Usually I need a new sticker whenever I change my phone, So
yeah. Thanks.
All right.
I appreciate you.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. Bye.
Bye.